Welcome to Dodgers Daily. Casey Porter here. So glad that you decided to tune in. Fans, today we have a very, very, very special guest, a scout in the Dodgers system, Brian Kraft. And then also he went to Oklahoma State University. So, Brian, I could not be more excited to bring you in. I know you're super busy. Thank you for carving time out. I can't wait to dive into all this.
No, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk a little Oklahoma State and draft and whatever else we get into.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of talk about the Dodgers, but let's get into the Oklahoma State side. This is going to cross over between the O State Daily site and the Dodgers Daily site. So we got to set the background to know exactly how you got to where you're at right now. Let's back up to your playing career at Oklahoma State, early 2000s, Josh Fields, Chris Gutierrez, who was the third base bench coach, infield coach for Oklahoma City last year, Jeff Salazar. You got all these guys on that team. Back us up to that team and what you remember your time at Oklahoma State.
Yeah, I mean, the 2002 team I thought was just a really talented team, and it was kind of obvious from day one. Like, we go out to take batting practice, scrimmage, like in the beginning of the fall, and you're looking around the field, and there's just a lot of good players out there, like a lot of athletes, a lot of good, strong-bodied guys that can do a lot of things on the field. So, again, I know the way the season ended wasn't what we all had hoped for, but just the day in, day out of like facing the arms and seeing the position players, it was obvious. A lot of those guys went on to have great careers and play in the big leagues. So, and it was kind of obvious even back then at the time.
So it has been confirmed you're not a Baseball America writer, correct?
I have never been a Baseball America writer. I was a big reader of it, but not a baseball writer, no.
So whenever you called Chris Gutierrez's room and told him that you were a writer for the Baseball America when he was a freshman, and he got all excited about it, that was all a hoax, correct?
I cannot confirm or deny whether I did that, but it would have been a hoax if I did it. It was, just a little way to kill time. I hadn't thought about that in a while. I hope Chris hasn't either, but pretty funny at the time. Funny at the time.
I know one of your good buddies, Coach Hawk, Shane Hawk, who's doing just such a wonderful job at Choctaw, just not even just delivering baseball players, but teaching these young men how to be young men, correct? I know you and him are pretty tight. So can you talk about him and how proud you are of him of going into the all-century team for the decade of the early 2000s?
Yeah, Shane was great. I know like a lot of people that know him now as a mature, older Shane Hawk, but like thinking back to Shane, he had a great arm, obviously left-handed. And he was kind of one of those guys that he liked to joke around, really easy guy, but on the field, super competitive. Yeah. But no, I mean, Shane, knowing him through the years, obviously knowing his wife, and then getting to see the father he's turned into. I mean, Shane's just kind of nothing shocking, just turned into a great guy that we still talk, and kind of excited to see now that his kids are kind of getting up to that point and making decisions on college and beyond. It's kind of fun to be with it, looking at it and talking to him about it, knowing Shane before he was even married. So yeah, it makes me feel old, but it's definitely a cool thing to be hearing about how his family's doing.
Yeah. Jason Jaramillo, you've been through all the scouting. You've seen all these players. You've scouted and signed and found major leaguers one after the other. Is he still one of the most talented players you've ever seen?
I actually think about JJ. I actually have a signed bat in my office, so I always walk by it and look at it. Especially for what I know now, catching is like non-existent. It's just a hard position to find. Not just because it's a hard position to play. There just aren't a lot. But JJ was obviously super talented, could really throw, catch the ball, but being a switch hitter, had some power. If I were looking through my lens today and going back in time, 100% understand. It's hard to find a catcher, but then a catcher that has like some offensive ability and power. It's really rare. So not surprised that JJ found his way on TV.
Yeah, he always wore the regular hat and he wore it backwards, and so he looked like a total badass whenever he caught for Oklahoma State University, and it was really cool. And also really cool, Billy Gasparino, who is a high up in the Dodgers chain. He was a shortstop late 90s. You were the shortstop. I don't know. Were you directly after him, or was there one in between you?
There was a gap in between. Okay. Yeah.
And then between you and then you kind of passed the baton to Chris Gutierrez, who is the third base bench coach and infield coach for AAA Oklahoma City. That's a really cool connection, college to the Dodgers, isn't it?
Yeah. And honestly, I don't know how the Dodger connection with Oklahoma State started or what it was, but it is, or it was now that Goody's moved on. But it's I mean, it's kind of crazy how a lot of Cowboys have ended up with the Dodgers. But yeah, I mean, didn't know Billy kind of until I got into scouting, and after I played, obviously I knew the name, didn't personally know him till afterwards. But and then obviously got to spend time with Gutierrez. So yeah, it's just it just happened. But yeah, we do have some Cowboys with the Dodgers.
Yeah, and Jeff Salazar, who I think he got caught stealing maybe one time his last year at Oklahoma State. Best bunter this side of Freddie Ocasio I think I've ever seen in my entire life. And so can you take us through what you remember of Jeff Salazar and maybe y'all's relationship now?
Yeah, obviously I actually just saw Jeff last week when we were out in meetings in Arizona. But I think kind of to sum it up, I always think about one thing with Jeff is, he came in from, I believe, Connors, and, he could really, really run. He could hit, and he's playing center field. And kind of to start the fall, he's playing fine. And then I remember one day after a scrimmage coming inside and talking to somebody, and I distinctly remember saying, well, I think Sally just decided he's the best center fielder in the country today. I just remember it as one day, it all just clicked for him. And then obviously he gets stronger in pro ball and starts, hitting for power, but always talented. But I remember whatever day it was, I remember thinking Sally just put it all together and he's off to the races.
Yeah. And the Dodgers at the minor league system, especially at the lower levels, they led, not just the lower levels. They led, I think Tulsa was the only level that where our organization did not lead their league in stolen bases. And then you also had Kendall, George, and all these guys individually that stole 1 million different bases. So you got to think Jeff Salazar is making a huge impact on the running game in the Dodgers system right now.
Yeah, and obviously I can't speak to everybody, just not personally knowing, but with Kendall, Kendall is the fastest player I've ever scouted. Yes. I mean, he may be, Olympic type runner. And getting to see him in high school, and obviously he stole bases through his career, but that was actually taking the speed out of it. Actually take the speed into it. He kind of leaned on that. I don't know if you would have called him in high school a base stealer with these huge instincts. Yes. So now obviously he's gotten so much better in a short period of time. And yeah, I think Sally and other coaches are a direct, you can give them a lot of credit for that. Obviously Kendall can just fly, but he's obviously gotten a lot better in terms of reading pitchers, jumps, all the things that go into stealing bases. And he put together, I think maybe Billy Hamilton was the last guy to steal that many bases in pro ball. So pretty historic, and getting to keep up with him every day. It was kind of like with me, I'd wait till whatever time at night and get online and go, how many did he steal today? It was really fun to keep up on my part, just him coming from the middle of the country and kind of just stalking his stats every night, kind of get to 100, man, get to 100. It was really fun for me.
You also beat D. Gordon. I think he was the first one, the fastest one to 50 stolen bases, and I don't exactly quote me. There was something like that. He broke a D. Gordon record, and you actually got to scout him down there at Atascocita in the Houston area. What did he look like on a high school field? He was a guy that we started seeing the summer before at Team USA and area codes and all the different events in the summer. And he just always hit our group as we really believed in the bat. Mm-hmm. The run was shocking to watch him run. Shocking. Yes.
It really, I mean, there's a blue flame coming out the back when he goes.
I have him digitally timed at 3.5 to first base.
Honestly, he's one of those guys, you hear stories about Bo Jackson from older scouts, and you hear he's a story. If you're talking about Kendall running, it doesn't matter. I believe it. You don't have to tell me the story, because he really is by far the fastest. And I've been fortunate to see some guys that could really go, but Kendall's a different level. But, it's kind of interesting. You see a lot of guys that can run in scouting. You see a lot of guys that can hit in scout, that you believe can hit. But Kendall's combination of hit, run, and being a left-handed hitter, obviously being close to first base was, just a combination that I'm glad Billy he couldn't pass on. But yeah, he's just, to kind of keep it simple, he was a guy facing all the good pitching in the summer and continuing that through the spring. He was just a guy we always believed in the bat. You question the power, but he's going to get on base. He's going to, steal a lot of bags and play center field.
The defense is always the big question I get for Kendall George. I'll say it. You don't have to say it. I think some of the routes maybe early on in his professional career could have got cleaned up. I think he's done a lot better job with that. Can you speak to the defense of Kendall George?
Yeah, and again, not really getting to see him play much a couple times on TV since we signed him. But yeah, I mean, he always in high school, I think he leaned on the speed and athleticism. Yes. A lot of high school kids do. That's not a knock on Kendall at all. But I think like the biggest thing with Kendall, when you look at the athlete, you look at the run and thinking he can get better, because we always bought into the hit, which is the hardest thing to find. Yeah. So with that speed, I think it's going to allow him a lot of, some wiggle room with some of the other things. But again, it sounds like the reports I read, things are getting better, but I think that's kind of the big place of emphasis this going into this year.
I don't know what level it is past calling it a carrying tool, but whatever DEFCON level of tool that you would call his speed, it is that. Okay, so let's back up a little bit more to your Oklahoma State career. I'm going to look to my right because I don't want to miss any names here, at least that I have written down. It's not going to be every name, but let me throw you some of these names out here. Jose Virgil, sure. The son of, Ozzie Virgil, that Ozzie Virgil that you've heard of. JJ, we mentioned him a minute ago. Jason Jaramillo, Josh Fields, Mario Matalich, who was a really good right-handed, I think he was a DH there for Oklahoma State. Zach Cates, Nabasset Brown, who still I think is one of the most raw, talented young men I've ever seen come through OSU. When you hear those names, what goes through your mind?
Yeah, just a lot of time spent with them, a lot of fun had with them, and a lot of good players. Again, those teams, starting my career at Florida State and coming over, those teams at Oklahoma State, Coach Holliday and Coach Wine, John Farrell and Josh, it just was a lot of talented kids with big tools. And for me coming over, something just physically, like Luke Scott, Roy York, I was we're just men amongst boys physically. So yeah, it was a fun team. Again, a lot of talent. And just a good group. We spent a lot of time together. It was a good group to be around for a lot of time.
So you got into the end of Tom Holliday's career as the head coach at Oklahoma State. You played under Robbie Wine. Got a little bit of Josh Holliday. Take us through all of them.
Yeah, really, when I kind of think about my time at Oklahoma State, I really appreciate everybody, because it came at a tough time for me after my freshman year at Florida State. Just, again, to my fault, not anybody else. It was a great team, great guys, and obviously Mike Martin is on the Mount Rushmore of college baseball coaching, but just not being a good fit and kind of just going through a tough time. Ended up when we made the decision, my dad, I remember saying, before we do anything, let's call Coach Holliday. And Coach Holliday was kind of there for me at a time where I just kind of didn't know. And people that know me, even, with myself, thinking of a time where I didn't want to be on a baseball field seems odd, but I was kind of there. So I owe a lot to Coach Holliday for giving me a chance, kind of helped me find that passion again when I got there my sophomore year. And yeah, I can't remember the last time I haven't been on a baseball field since showing up in Stillwater.
Yeah, you don't just become a scout one day and all of a sudden get good at grading tools like this. There's always a huge village of people that play a big part in this. And so after Oklahoma State, how about getting to coach under Denny Craybaugh at OCU, Coach Polk? You got to coach under Rob Walton at ORU. How fortunate can you get to play for Tom Holliday, get to play for Robbie Wine, Josh Holliday at Oklahoma State, get to play for Mike Martin at Florida State, and then get to mentor under those three coaches I just mentioned? That's a big village right there.
Yeah, kind of like the book Outliers, right? No coincidence. I'm really fortunate. And even going back to high school, I played for Roger Maris's son, Kevin Maris, in Gainesville at Oak Hall. So by chance, I have been around guys that have been, huge in my life, even bigger in my baseball life. But, getting the chance to learn from different guys, starting with Kevin to Mike Martin to Tom Holliday, Rob, Denny Craybaugh, an amazing guy that they gave me a chance again when I was just begging for a job, and getting to work with him and Keith Lytle. Rob Walton, another Oklahoma State guy that was really big in giving me a chance was Ryan Fulmer, who's now the head coach at Oral Roberts, who is the director of ops when I was at Oklahoma State, getting me a chance to be the volunteer, which all those relationships were great, helped me in my baseball career, but their tree of people they know in baseball is really what got me into scouting, and Rob Walton's friendship with Stan Meek is how I got in with the Marlins. So all of it, they taught me a ton, but kind of the branches of people are kind of like everything in baseball. It's a small world in life, but a really, really small world in baseball. So all those connections kind of led me to, got me chances everywhere and led me to where I am today.
Tell us how you got involved, first of all, in being a scout out of the coaching world into the scouting world, and how you got with the Marlins.
Yeah, so coaching at Oral Roberts, I was a volunteer at Oral Roberts after coaching at Oklahoma City and a junior college in Florida, Polk Community College. And kind of this came up. And I remember talking to Rob one day, and I was like, I never thought about scouting. All I want to do is coach. The problem with coaching is I couldn't get a break. And again, not saying I was deserving of one, but it seemed like all the interviews I'd go through, kind of always a bridesmaid, could never get like a bigger job. And one day Rob just basically said, he goes, "Hey, if this Marlin thing works out, you need to just take it. You need to take it and go." So I kind of thought about it, and I was mowing the field one day at ORU, and Stan Meek called and offered the job. I took it I wouldn't say I was excited, a little scared, just because I had kind of put all my eggs into the coaching basket. So we drive down, we moved to Florida, was my first area, and there's a big showcase called the Florida Diamond Club, which is the best players, best high school players in the state of Florida. And I remember after one full day at Diamond Club thinking, I'll never coach again. This was just it just hit me in all the right ways, getting to watch good players, the extremely hard job of trying to evaluate, pick out the right ones. It was just it felt like a perfect fit for me, and kind of haven't turned back. So here we are, I guess 17, 18 years later, and I'm still doing it.
Yeah, see, now people laugh at me when I say assistant coaches in college mow the infield, they cook the meals, they plan the itineraries. They do a little bit of everything. So let's get geeky here. When you mowed the infield, was it a real mower or was it a rotary mower? Do you remember? No,
it was a good one. I had a lot of help, but every now and then, starting at OCU, going to Polk and Oral Roberts, little competition, who can make the coolest designs. You're getting online trying to find something different. Yeah. At the same time, I was a little scared to mess things up, especially at Oral Roberts. Coach Fulmer kept me in check there. Let's just keep it easy. But no, it was. I actually think, especially coaching at junior college and with Denny at OCU, the smaller schools I was at, it actually, at the time, you kind of maybe the glitz and glamour wasn't there. But I really think, having to, do the website, do the laundry, do the field. I had to teach class. I had to, do lessons every day. Really kind of wearing all those hats kind of helped me in the long term of juggling all the things that we juggle, in scouting today. So as much as it was a full day back then, I think it's really helped me, moving forward and wearing a lot of hats now. And
don't forget broadcasting. Coach Fulmer was in broadcasting for a long time at Oklahoma State. I'm sure you never got away from that too. I'll bet you had to broadcast a color game or two on the radio too, right?
I actually have never had the chance to do it. I remember one time almost coming close, and I always say I have a voice for silent TV, so I don't know if people wanted me to do that, but that would have been fun. That's probably one of the things I would love to give it a shot back then. Now maybe I'm glad I never got the chance.
You also found and signed Jose Fernandez, who died tragically in a boating accident, which, gosh, it doesn't seem like that was that long ago, man. It's amazing how time flies. Can you talk about him?
Yeah, Jose. It really doesn't seem that long ago. Kind of everything seems like yesterday with Jose, but I always say he was my second kid before I had a second kid. Incredible. There's not much. He's one of those guys that kind of like local legend. He was a legend before he even signed with us. High school wise, people from Tampa would come out to see him. He was kind of larger than life, but the stuff, big guy threw hard, but the pitchability, the secondary, kind of like the passion for the game, the compete level, like all those things came together to make him, what he was. And what I'll never forget about Jose, it was a really long summer, kind of back before the signing deadline was quick. It made for a long summer. Some interesting stories there with trying to get him signed, but in the end we signed him. He flew through the system, just as easily just as lovable a player. I think like even guys on the other team enjoyed watching him compete and throw. And obviously he had a way too short career, but Jose was incredible. I even love like just being at the different ballparks and obviously people don't know who I am or my connection, but hearing his name get brought up by people just talking baseball is like really special for me. And the biggest thing with Jose is the career was too short. It was, I don't even know the word unfortunate is a big enough word for what happened at the end, but I just really hope people don't forget how special a talent he was. And he really, I thought he hit like every generation of fan, like older fans that, talk about the way players are today, loved watching him. Younger fans loved watching him. He was just an incredible talent, an incredible personality, and watching him throw was special every time starting in high school.
I've actually had players on and asked them who their idol was growing up, and they've actually mentioned him. There's been guys who have done that, so that's really cool. Okay, so while with the Dodgers, you have signed several different guys. Let's dive into a couple here. Lyle Lockhart Jr., you got him out of Arkansas, same team as Brian Anderson you're talking about there. And then also Gavin Stone. Of course, here's little skinny Gavin Stone, who's not Gavin Stone at this time, although he is throwing no-hitters for UCA back then for Coach Gum and Coach Harlan, who now is the head coach, who took over for Coach Gum. What in the heck did you see about Gavin Stone?
Yeah, Gavin was one of those guys that, even he wasn't as big as, as physically as he is now, but always had a good arm. I think, in the fall that year, saw him up to like 94, 95. He could always spin the baseball. Breaking ball was kind of his lead strength at that time, which I think is funny now because the changeup is such a big pitch for him, but really, really athletic. But, we had some guys that maybe saw him in the summer. We always like kind of the ingredients to him, but really the biggest thing with Gavin is, in the fall, after you see guys that you have interest in, you go meet with them. And we have some tests that we give them, but it's really just to get to know the player, like the person, not just the player. And I walked out of the meeting with Gavin and I called somebody and I go, we have to take this kid. Like he's just one of those guys. And I think in baseball, we look at scouting, baseball's different. If we strip that down and baseball's just a job, Gavin's the type of guy you just bet on. He's going to make it to the top. He may start entry level, whatever he wanted to do in life. He just had that kind of personality drive to do it. Since we are doing baseball, kind of getting into his background, he played like 100 sports in high school at a small town.
Bowling included, by the way.
Bowling, which I guarantee he was good at. He was just that guy. So you're kind of dreaming on Gavin, just, hey, if the stars align, we can add strength. If he finds other pitches, I think he's just like, you just believed in the kid. And I believed in him 100%. And after, again, COVID year, so we spent a lot of time on these type of Zoom calls, and our group, would watch an outing, and different guys in our scouting group started buying in, and obviously Billy, most importantly. And then we ended up making it happen in the 5th round. And that was kind of really exciting because my daughters were there because we did it Zoom. Everybody was there. So the girls still kind of feel a part of that draft. Gavin's one of their favorite players. So really cool story. Really excited for what all Gavin's done, and I'm really looking forward to him bouncing back from injury and getting back on the mound this year.
For those of you who don't know, Gavin Stone was drafted in the COVID draft, and there was only 5 rounds of that draft, and he was drafted in the 5th round, so he was sweating bullets on that one.
And so was I. So we were there together. But really excited to make that phone call back then. And again, really excited for his career, letting him get healthy and keep going.
So his brother Colin Stone played at Arkansas State and also played professionally. How big is the bloodline aspect of things for a scout?
It's definitely a piece of it, and I think just like, again, any other job, if your dad's a doctor, your mom's a lawyer, whatever the case, you just grow up in that environment. So like, you just kind of have like, if you want to call it some instincts that maybe somebody else wouldn't, you just know that lifestyle, the work involved, how, your parents go about this thing or grandparents or whatever it might be. But I think it's definitely a feather in the hat. And when you go, hey, there's this kid over here, his dad played in the big leagues. Yes, that is definitely another piece where you're like, yeah, this sounds interesting. And I think it is kind of amazing. There's a ton of stories, but the bloodlines run deep. And I think that in sports is a really big thing.
Yeah. You also signed Lyle Lockhart Jr. out of Arkansas. Lyle's one of that whole family. Kyle was actually committed to come to OU until they kind of went the transfer portal route. He had to change directions there. But Lyle Lockhart Sr., the dad down there in the Houston area, I love that family. Lyle was an absolute badass at Arkansas. I loved his mentality. And, I know a lot of people, the guy that you also signed, Zach Root, that just came to the Dodgers this last year, they compare him to Alex Vesia. Well, really, when I first saw Zach pitch at Arkansas, the first thing that came to my mind, oh, that's Lyle Lockhart Jr. That's like Lyle Lockhart Jr. all over again with mentality. So can you talk about those two?
Yeah, I think, starting with Locke, I think that is what stands out. Maybe not the hardest thrower, maybe not the biggest stuff, but always thought like, wow, this kid, he could really pitch. And, starting in the fall, you're like, how's he going to fit in? He ends up getting into a starting rotation at Arkansas on a good Arkansas team. But again, he's another one, like kind of where I really dug into him is getting to know him, talking with him and stuff later in the year. From, work ethic off the charts, understanding who he was on a mound and how to use his stuff was really impressive. And he's just another guy. You're like, you know what? I think this guy's going to find a way. Yes. And he's had a great pro career. Every year, I hope this is the year for him. We still chat a little bit. I know he's, not with us anymore, but really rooting for him. Love that we were able to get him and that Billy ended up taking him, and just an easy guy to root for because of all the things he's working on behind the scenes.
Yeah. Talk about Zach Root.
Zach Root. So kind of an interesting, when you're watching a guy and you get these like ideas in your mind, shocked he fell to us.
No doubt.
Left Friday night starter, SEC performance, Arkansas, but really happy he did. But, Root's another one. I think the biggest thing that jumps out at you is like what he does, like his mentality on the field. Like he's not out there to have a good time. Like he's super competitive. He's not afraid to get into it, yell a little bit, but I always felt like him, like every pitch was like, needed to be the best pitch of his life or the last pitch of his life. He just kind of approached every pitch with that. But on top of that, we're talking about the competitive. The biggest thing is he's left-handed. We saw him up to 98, and we actually thought he had, we say plus secondary, like plus, or above average fastball, curveball, slider, or fastball. Let me start again. Curveball, slider, changeup, and the pitchability. So we thought it was a guy that I'm excited that he got down to us. I think he's kind of like a low risk starter in the big leagues. Obviously, that's just our opinion, but I think we're really buying into it. And the early reports coming out of like Dodger camp have sounded great. And I'm really looking forward to him starting. I know we signed him last year, didn't really get into games. So him getting out on the mound, starting his pro career, and hopefully sprinting towards Los Angeles.
So how much did you get to see Robo at Oklahoma State? I know he had to shut it down about halfway through in 2021, his last year there. Did you get to see the game in Stillwater when he pitched against Kumar Rocker?
That was the game I was at.
Okay.
Yeah. So obviously would have loved to see him throw more, but that game in Kumar at the time, and I mean, obviously in the big leagues, but I mean, Kumar, super physical kid with really big stuff, but you kind of walked out of that game thinking, Robleski's not like in some other league. I mean, Robleski's stuff was loud in college. It was kind of like, he's left-handed, big velocity, big breaking ball. Kind of maybe the question at the time was just like control command. Yeah. Obviously, he breaks down. Billy ends up taking him, I think, the 11th round. And but he was a guy we always, even dating back to high school and Clinton, like I think like stuff, left-handed were all like the highlights of Robo. But I think the other thing that we've come to find out is like the work ethic and all the things put in behind the scenes. He kind of like started, bridging the gap between pitchability and stuff. And now we see him, getting to pitch in Game 7 this year, which was nerve-wracking and incredible for everybody in Dodgers and probably everybody around the world. That game has to be, I know I'm biased, but it has to be one of the better
I know him
Game
well
7s.
enough where I wasn't nervous at all. I knew that was going to bring out the best of him.
No question. I don't think he gets nervous.
No,
I get nervous, but I think we all got nervous when
like
we're watching.
Papa.
But no, Robleski's been great. I think he was our organizational pitcher of the year one year. He just really, I think, distancing himself from injury, getting some help, whatever areas that helped his control command improve. I mean, he's just been incredible, and obviously a part of the World Series championship this last year, which is, there's no price tag you can put on that. So really proud of Robo, super happy we took him. And he's another one, just excited to see like if that Game 7 kind of takes him to another level moving forward.
Of course, when you get hit by a bus, whenever you break your jaw getting hit by a baseball, and then have to have Tommy John all in like a 4-year span, and that's all in your college career, you're pretty much prepared to deal with any kind of adversity that comes your way, I think.
Would have been easy to quit,
no
but that's
doubt.
not him. Yeah.
No doubt about it. Okay, so Ryan Sublet, this is a guy that's super underrated. Now, I'm not going to lie about it. The execution piece comes and goes with him because he's kind of a three-quarter slot guy. But when he is putting the ball in the zone, this is a guy that just never gets hit hard. What did you see in Ryan Sublet out of Texas Tech?
Yeah, I mean, kind of simply, like you watch a lot of guys, he just looked hard to hit. He was like a deceptive, it's kind of a lower slot. He threw hard. He had a breaking ball. He had a changeup, which is kind of like rare in relievers to see that. And actually we had luck with him, with Clint, our area scout, and actually a bunch of people with in our scout. You got to see him like extended. So you got like some feel for pitchability and things like that. But yeah, if I had to say, like, you could only say one thing about Sublet, it would be like, good luck. Like, he's just a hard guy to hit with the look he gives hitters. Yeah.
So did you get to see Sub and Clayton Beater in the same weekend there for Tech?
I'm sure I did. I know I saw him a lot. It always, when I saw him wear, but I definitely remember the COVID draft I actually started the year with Texas Tech. So got Beater right out of the gates that year.
Yeah. Okay. So Dylan Campbell, DC, the Dodgers traded him away last year. What an incredible athlete. First of all, did you ever get to watch him play running back in high school? And also, did you see the doubleheader with Trey Faltini and that incredible group that Texas had where they came and beat OSU's ass all over the field that day in a doubleheader at O'Brien? Did you get to see the day that he had that day? He was the best player on the field and it wasn't close.
I did that because Stillwater will always be closer than Austin is. So I'm always trying to get those guys when they come to God's country. But yeah, so Dylan Campbell. In terms of football, I always say I love watching football. I grew up in Florida. I didn't play, so I don't know. I know he looked good on video. But yeah, I had heard that he was actually like a recruited player. To which level, I don't know, but he was a recruited football player. But Dylan I always thought kind of had that like unassuming body for the athlete he was, just being like a thicker guy, but strong, could run, always played right field at Texas, always believed that he could play center. And then, he started running into power that junior year, his draft eligible year. And, he was a guy that I think everybody in our department kind of just really bought into the chance to hit with some power, but we all kind of thought there was a chance to play center field. And then, obviously it's not going to happen with us, but he was a part of getting the international money to sign Roki. So, great pick. I'm still check on him every day. I hope the best for him. But yeah, he was a guy that I think as a group, he was one of, if you wanted to say like one of our targets in that draft, just because kind of everybody was kind of seeing it the same way with Campbell. But again, just the athlete, just the tool set he had, I think is going to set him up and give him a chance to make it up there.
Same team as Zach Rude, Charles Davelin. I think this is a guy people are sleeping on. He just absolutely was way too good for the low A level. I mean, he just breezed right through that pitching. I think a couple of things that are going underrated for him, I'd love to get your thoughts. Way better athlete than what he's getting credit for. He's a great defender in the outfield. And then two, I know Oklahoma State's had several Canadians, and those Canadians tend to have the flatter line drive type of swings. And so I think that's going to play him very well as he moves forward. Your thoughts on Charles Davelin?
Yeah, another one I think like we're just really biased on. We went to when he transferred from Gulf Coast, we were there early scrimmages, actually three of us, Tim Adkins and Rob St. Julian. And I think like from the first swing, we kind of all looked at each other and just said, oh, that's different. This kid can hit, and kind of like stalking him through the year. But he was another guy, I think like, he's not the biggest guy. He was standing in left field at Arkansas. So there's some things to vent through. But I think by the end of the year, since I've been with LA, it was the most the most people buying into a bat. Like, again, hitting is the hardest thing to find. And everybody that walked in there said, that's the bat. That's the bat. We had different views on the power, but I think he's going to get I'm biased. I think he's going to get to some. But yeah, we all thought he could hit. And he really is kind of like when we were doing Zoom calls at the end leading up to the draft, he's kind of a special kid. He's another one, I know I've said this a few times with Gavin and Locke, but that's kind of a big thing when you kind of go, oh, I think he can do this. And you kind of get to know the kid and you're like, oh no, I think he's going to do this based on like the makeup. Davelin's another one, just really, really good baseball IQ, knows what he's trying to do, knows where he wants to get. Big worker. And getting to see him in Arizona last week, nothing's changed. He's just that kid that just knows how to hit. And I think he's always going to hit. And again, I think that's how our group felt too.
Yeah. Kind of a weird question here. I've actually had coaches tell me this before. Like, let's say that you have two guys and they're fairly similar. They actually will go with the guy that looks better, that has the better appearance to maybe the fans, because that's a player that's easier for them to sell to other people. Does that part of it play into it? Like whenever you see a guy, he doesn't necessarily reach the measurables, do you have to be more certain about that guy to be able to sell them?
I don't know if that, but like definitely, I mean, this is athletics and bodies matter.
Absolutely.
Athletic bodies, loose bodies, strong bodies, all those things. And, a good book like The Sport Gene is a good book that talks about that a lot, that certain bodies put you in situations to succeed in different sports. Different sports have different ideal bodies. But baseball is no different. And I think bodies are a big part. 162 games is not easy or good for your body. It takes a special body, a special athlete. So I think bodies are, is it the most important? No. Is it very important? Yes, along with everything else. But yeah, that is a big part of just being able to be on the field that much and, being able to go through all the things that this sport puts you through. Bodies are important.
Yeah. Dylan Tate, a young man who was injured at OU. So Dodgers fans are sleeping on him because I know he got back towards the end. He's so competitive. He was like, I am going to be a part of the postseason for this team. I'm really high on Dylan Tate because I love the compete element. I think there's a high upside there. So what are your thoughts on Dylan Tate? I know you signed him.
Yeah, another one, Tim Adkins, the area guy, we kind of fell in love with him a little in the fall. It's a really good fastball. Obviously, there's velocity, but the fastball, we think it plays really well. And we kind of bought into the change and the breaking ball. But yeah, him not throwing this year was a little frustrating, kind of in what we do. Like, we were so convicted in the fall that it was like, hey, I think we need to not let anybody forget about him. If he doesn't pitch all year, let's still make a run at it. He ended up throwing at the end. We had people at the SEC tournament, and then we had people see him in the Cape, and it ended up working out. But yeah, I think Dylan's one of those guys. I don't want to say like the late bloomer, but he went to junior college before OU, and then obviously got hurt, didn't get to work a lot with Skip Johnson over there. But I think he has the ingredients. He's got a great arm. He can pitch. I think like just those little details that he didn't get, being hurt, and hopefully he gets those and just kind of piling up the innings, doing all the detailed work. The stuff is there. So we have really high hopes. Great reports coming out of Arizona, and really looking forward to him just like getting out there because he's got a great arm, and I think it's just getting those innings, just taking that pitchability, keep bumping that pitchability up, and he'll be off to the races.
Full transparency, I know very little about Tate Hixon. I have not seen him play much. Can you take us through him?
Yeah, good-looking guy, was a transfer from Florida State to Rice, and I actually got him at a game at Tulane. Our area scout liked him, saw him in Houston a bunch. We had some guys see him at the Minute Maid tournament. But I think with Davion, it's a good body. It's like a young-looking body, yes. So you kind of think that he's going to add strength. He's an athletic kid with a great arm. And the day I got him, it was like, and I think everybody's looks, it was kind of like up to 95, 96. He's got a changeup. He's got a breaking ball. And I think just with him, the word consistency, it's just like learning to repeat and stuff. But again, all the ingredients in kind of a younger looking athletic body. So, you're hoping a couple of years with our staff down there, we're adding strength. We're just getting the detailed work. The stuff is there. And I think just moving forward, he just needs more innings and some help to kind of like get his kind of that skilled stuff up to his tools and athleticism. And then we're hoping for a starting pitcher outcome there.
Yeah.
So really excited to see him, obviously this year, but I think like in a couple of years, we're going to see some really big strides with Davion.
Another pitcher and another guy that played football, and that would be Sam Horn. He actually played quarterback at the University of Missouri. So talk about what you saw out of him. Of course, I know baseball guys, they love multi-sport guys because it's a different type of athlete. You get to see different types of competitiveness in those people. So talk about Sam Horn.
Yeah, Sam. So actually, like a little of a decent story. I'll keep it short, but his freshman year, Missouri was playing in a Globe Life tournament. Actually, I think Oklahoma State was there, and Josh Burns and I were watching, and in comes this freshman. And I thought you could have made an argument he was the best arm there as a freshman. So we kind of like stare at each other and we're like, no matter what happens with the football, because he was on the football team all his time in Missouri, we will never forget this day. Well, he ends up getting injured, and that takes him through. And then he's going to be the core, all the things that kind of kept him off the baseball field. We got a few starts last year. The area guy David Pearson and I saw him. We had guys see him at the SEC tournament. So of his limited starts, we were actually there to see him. And so we end up, talking as a group. We kind of had a plan in place because we all really liked the ability, the size, the stuff. He's just kind of like, I guess, an unknown just because you didn't get to see him much at all. Right. But I think the Dodgers saw a bulk of the innings, and I'm sure other clubs did too. But we, as a group, we felt like comfortable taking a shot. I can't tell you how horrified I was when he was hurt this fall, watching the game in the living room, like going, oh my God, I didn't think he was going to play till the second half. Yeah. But anyway, the football career, I know was cut short, and I do feel for him there, but really excited that he's going to be wearing our uniform and moving forward with us. A guy, again, I know my opinion is a big guy. He throws hard. Hasn't pitched much because of injury and football, that I think just has like a lot of natural abilities, like to quote pitch with big velocity and a breaking ball. So I kind of think he's another one. It's like the ingredients you really believe in, like starting. And I think like the stuff is good enough to actually, pitch in LA for the Dodgers. So really excited that Zach and Billy took a chance on him late. It worked out, and really excited for him I think they're planning on him getting on the mound like July and get going. Cool. So hopefully we can pile up some innings and him get running. So
that kind of brings me up to one of I got a couple of questions here left for you. And that is, the Dodgers do such a great job of what I call planting roots. So like earlier this year, they had to face Adam Sierwanowski at the high A level. And Rob Hill and all those guys were like, hey, if that guy ever becomes available, we're going to get that guy. So the Dodgers do a great job of seeing guys that they know they can't get maybe at that moment, but then they put it in their back pocket and they go, as soon as we can get that guy, we are going to. Is that something that I'm making up here, or is that something that actually happens?
No, I mean, and I think like, and again, like not doing player development or being in the front office, just in scouting, it's really hard. Like actually drafting a guy is similar to hitting the lottery, right? The odds are most of the work we do every day is not going to pay off immediately in this year's draft. But kind of like the mindset we play, especially this year with our pick spread, is, hey, guys, like, all the information we can put in the system, it may not help us this year. It'll help us down the line in trades. It may not help us. It may help us this year in the draft. It may help us to say yes or no in a trade or whatever, even further down the road, getting to know the player, which can become easier or harder as they go through their professional careers. So no, I think what I believe, obviously I'm biased here with the Dodgers, but what we do it's like all under one roof. It is. So like we're all kind of pulling at the same rope, but I think, again, if we just every day we're just trying to get to know these players and as people, put it in the system. And if that helps us in 5 years, like with Sirota, I know our guy did a great job as an amateur. And then I think that like hit home with the front office and our upper management. And then when I think that was a big part of it. And so I think like coming in with that mindset that like, hey, we're just getting to know everybody as much as we can for the Dodgers. At what point, I don't know, but I think it'll pay off. Giving, information is never bad. So I think that's like a good way to look at it. But to be honest, of course, we're always trying to get the players we like in this year's draft because we want that immediate payoff.
Absolutely.
But yeah.
I always talk about how the Dodgers, yes, they get Shohei Ohtani, but they do such a better job than anybody on the margins, too. And that would go to, you just heard right there behind the curtains, why the Dodgers do so well on the margins, because they put this information away on all the guys they like. They retrieve it when they need to in trade scenarios, and that's one of the big reasons why they almost never lose in the pro scouting side of it, coming from the amateur scouts to begin with, too. So, okay, let's finish this up, and let's get into maybe some of the logistics of what your job entails. First of all, you're an amateur scout. That doesn't mean you're an amateur. That means you actually scout the guys that aren't pros yet. So can you kind of take us through the difference between what an amateur scout is and a pro scout, and some of the differences in maybe the routines there?
Yeah, I think you just nailed it. Like amateur scouts, we spend the majority of our time covering, high school, junior college, and college in prepping for each year's draft. And then the professional scouts are scouting professional players. And again, like you said, like we'll have pro guys see amateurs, professional. Like we used to, long time ago, to date myself, we used to have pro coverage in the summer, which is kind of with the shorter, with the draft being, moved back in a shorter summer, we actually don't really do that. And I know some organizations do. We don't personally, as the Dodgers, get a chance to do that with going to all the events in the summer. But yeah, so basically everything the amateur staff here is doing is working on the drafts and the drafts to come. And, me personally, I cover the middle of the United States. Kind of, I always tell people when they ask, I go, south of Canada, north of Mexico, in the middle is my region.
The Louisiana Purchase.
There you go. Yeah.
Oh, that's absolutely awesome. Okay. And then also, what is a cross checker? Can you kind of explain what that means? I know you've done a lot of cross checking.
Yeah, so I'm kind of like the Midwest cross checker for the Dodgers. So it's just like, it's kind of like, everybody has their own piece of the pie that we're doing. And guys, we'll have area scouts that cover different states. We'll have regional guys or cross checkers that cover different regions. And then we have like the national group and scouting directors that do the whole country. So like everybody's kind of, the area scouts are overly detailed and dialed in to players in their states. And different teams break it up different ways with how they do it. And then there's a regional guy that covers, bigger chunks of the country. And then the national guys do the bigger, do the whole country as a whole. And kind of just like, it's kind of just different ways to rank players and get good comparisons. Obviously for me with different area guys, it's my ranking of these players. And then the national guys rank players. And in the end, we kind of try and put it all together and rank a board that we believe in and fingers crossed make some good picks.
Did you scout Earhart at OSU?
I did.
Good player.
Got to see him. Good player, and got to see him now being a Dodger. Got to see him this summer, and he's done a great job and adding some power and really putting together a great start to his professional career.
Okay, Ryan Kraft, I've taken a whole bunch of your time. I know this is like your only one off day, so this is so kind of you to join here on both O State Daily and Dodgers Daily. So thank you so much. Last question here. I don't think there was any crossover here in terms of your playing career at OSU, and while the AAA manager for the Oklahoma City Comets was helping build that legendary program at Cali County. But I know you have to know Lefty and Dave there, Burrows, the Burrows brothers. And did you know of Coach Scott Hennessy while he was at Cali, and do you guys exchange any of those kind of memories, if you will, now that he's a AAA manager?
So I wasn't out here when he was at Cali, but we did scout in Florida together where I started and he started before he got into coaching. So and actually got to see him at meetings and character, as you know, great baseball guy, kind of obviously, was coaching before scouting and now back into coaching in the professional level and doing it at AAA. But good guy who's kind of just, like all of us, made a life with baseball, and he's just a guy really passionate about the game, loves talking it, loves being around it, whatever job he's in baseball. It just kind of one of those big personalities that everybody knows, and the guy you always want to sit next to hear what he's talking about and what stories he's telling.
Absolutely. He loves horses. He's got horses. And he's, right before he comes to the ballpark, he's tending to all of his animals. So you got to love that about Henny. So, hey, Brian Kraft, what an incredible honor this has been. Great job, my man. It's great to see your face. So thank you so much for joining both O-State Daily and Dodgers Daily.
No, thanks for having me on. This was fun, and I appreciate it. Thanks for your time.